The night on Arian 7 was quiet, almost too quiet. The colony had settled into its usual rhythm, with the watchtowers scanning the skies for incoming ships and the defense turrets humming low across the perimeter walls. Inside the colony, most lights were out, leaving only a few engineering bays glowing with soft blue light. Lieutenant Daniel Ross was one of the few still awake. He sat at his workbench, rubbing his eyes as he stared at the half-assembled drone on the table. His hands were covered in grease, his uniform jacket hung carelessly on the chair, and the room smelled faintly of metal and oil. He sighed. "Another long day fixing everyone's problems," he muttered. Daniel was an engineer, not a soldier, though the military had assigned him to Arian 7 to keep the defense systems running. If the plasma turrets jammed or the radar went blind, it would be his problem to solve. Humans had expanded into the stars, but the frontier was never safe. Pirates, rival alien factions, and even natural disasters kept life unpredictable. All Daniel wanted right now was to finish his drone, get some rest, and maybe dream about home, Earth, with its blue oceans and green forests, so different from the dry, rocky plains of Arian 7. He leaned back in his chair and yawned. The colony quarters were simple, a metal room with 2 bunks, a desk, and a small wash station. He had no roommate, and he preferred it that way. Quiet suited him, but then without warning, the door to his room slid open with a hiss. Daniel froze. He had locked it. At least he thought he had. A tall figure stepped inside, moving with a calm, purposeful stride. The corridor lights behind her cast a long shadow across the floor. Daniel shot up from his chair, heart racing, reaching for the wrench on his table like it was a weapon. "What the hell?" he started. The figure stepped fully into the room and the door slid shut behind her. She was not human. Her skin was silver smooth as polished metal, catching the faint light like a mirror. Her hair shimmered like strands of liquid crystal, and her eyes glowed faintly, deep violet and sharp, scanning the room as if she owned it. She wore a long flowing robe, ceremonial by the look of it, adorned with geometric patterns. Without a word, she slipped the robe off her shoulders and let it fall to the floor. Beneath it, she wore a sleek armored bodysuit, dark and flexible, clearly made for combat or travel. To Daniel's eyes, it looked almost like she had stepped out of some science fiction holodrama. She looked at him directly and said in a clear, commanding voice, "Move over." Daniel blinked, the wrench still raised halfway in his hand. "Excuse me?" She didn't hesitate. She walked past him, straight toward the second bunk, and sat down as if it belonged to her. She rested her back against the wall, crossing her arms with an air of confidence. Daniel's mind raced. Who was she? How did she bypass the colony's security? And why was she in his quarters? "You can't just—" He started again, trying to find words. Her violet eyes turned toward him, sharp and unblinking. "I can, and I have." "Lower your voice." Daniel set the wrench down slowly, his pulse still hammering. "All right. Let's start simple. Who are you?" She hesitated, as if weighing how much to reveal. Finally, she said, "Kayla, that is all you need to know for now." "Kayla," Daniel repeated. The name sounded strange, but carried a certain weight. "Well, Kayla, you can't just barge into a soldier's quarters and, claim a bed?" Her gaze hardened. "If I wanted the whole colony to know I was here, I would have walked into the governor's office. But I did not. I chose you." That sent a shiver down Daniel's spine. "You chose me? Why?" "Because," she said, leaning forward slightly, "you are human, and humans are unpredictable." "That makes you useful," Daniel frowned. He had heard things about the Ver, a powerful alien empire in this sector. Their royalty were rarely seen, but their presence always meant politics or war. And Kayla looked very much like one of them. He crossed his arms. "Useful, huh? I'm not sure I like the sound of that." Kayla gave a faint smile, though it was more confident than kind. "You do not have to like it. You only have to cooperate." Daniel opened his mouth to argue again when the sudden sound of alarms echoed faintly from outside. His head snapped toward the window slit. Red lights began flashing across the colony walls. Kayla stood instantly, her posture tense. "They found me faster than I expected." Daniel's blood ran cold. "They? Who's they?" Before Kayla could answer, heavy boots thundered in the corridor outside. The muffled voices of soldiers, or maybe assassins, carried through the walls. Kayla looked him dead in the eyes. "If they see me here, both of us are dead." Daniel stared at her, stunned. His quiet night had just turned into something far more dangerous. He wanted to demand answers, but the urgency in her tone left no room. "Fine," he muttered, grabbing the half-built drone from the table. "But you owe me an explanation." She nodded once, sharply. "Later. Survive first." Daniel moved quickly, pulling a panel off the wall and jamming the drone's power core inside. The hum of energy spiked, making the lights flicker. Kayla raised an eyebrow. "What are you doing?" she asked. "Buying us time," Daniel said. "Humans call it improvising." The power surge sent a false reading through the colony's grid, tricking the scanners into thinking a reactor fault had triggered in a different sector. The heavy boots outside the door paused, then rushed away toward the false signal. The corridor grew silent again. Kayla looked at him with new curiosity. "You risked drawing attention to yourself." Daniel shrugged, trying to hide the adrenaline pounding in his chest. "Yeah, well, that's what humans do. We make messes, then fix them." For the first time, Kayla's expression softened slightly, though her eyes still held that sharp glow. She sat back down on the bunk, folding her arms again. "You may live up to your reputation after all," she said quietly. Daniel frowned. "Reputation?" "The galaxy speaks of humanity," Kayla said. "Some call you reckless. Others call you dangerous. I call you necessary." Daniel had no idea what that meant, but he knew one thing for certain. His quiet life on Arian 7 was over. He looked at the silver-skinned princess sitting in his room and sighed. This is going to be a long night. The night on Arian 7 refused to stay calm. Even though the boots had passed by Daniel's door and the alarms had gone silent, the weight of danger still hung in the air like thick smoke. Daniel paced across his room, his hands restless. He kept glancing at the alien woman now sitting calmly on the bunk like she owned the place. Kayla, she had called herself. Her silver skin caught the dim light, making her look almost like a statue come alive. Her violet eyes followed him, steady, patient, almost amused at his nervous pacing. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "You mind telling me exactly who you are, Kayla? Because right now I'm risking court-martial or worse for hiding you. And I don't even know what you are." Kayla tilted her head, her hair gleaming like strands of crystal. "You already guessed," she said. "I am Vare. More than that, I am their princess." Daniel stopped pacing. His mouth went dry. "A princess?" he repeated, almost laughing at the absurdity. "You're telling me the daughter of some alien emperor just walked into my quarters and decided to take the spare bunk?" Kayla's eyes narrowed. "Not decided, chosen. There is a difference." Daniel dropped onto his chair, running a hand down his face. "Why me? I'm just an engineer." "I'm not special. You could have gone to the governor, or to the military commander. Why come here?" Kayla's voice dropped low. "Because if I went to them, I would already be dead." Her words were sharp, heavy with truth. Daniel leaned forward. "Dead? You're saying someone wants you gone? Why?" Kayla hesitated. For the first time, she looked less like a confident royal and more like someone carrying a heavy burden. "Because my uncle wants the throne. He staged a coup. He wants to erase my bloodline so he can rule unchallenged." Daniel's heart sank. He knew power struggles in alien empires often ended in violence. And if Kayla was telling the truth, then the search outside wasn't just random patrols, it was an assassination hunt. "You're saying those people out there," Daniel gestured toward the door, "they're after you? They're here to kill you?" Kayla nodded once. "Yes, and if they find me here, your colony will pay the price. My uncle will call it a violation of their sovereignty. He will burn this place to ash." Daniel sat back, stunned. He thought life on Arian 7 was boring, just maintenance and repairs. Now he found himself harboring an alien princess wanted by assassins. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered. "So what, I'm just supposed to hide you? Pretend nothing's happening? That's your grand plan?" Kayla's violet eyes glowed faintly as she leaned forward. "No, I chose you because humans are different. Reckless, resourceful, impossible to predict. My people cannot see the path of chaos you walk. That is why you can protect me, at least for a little while." Daniel almost laughed. "Protect you? Lady, I fix drones and patch power grids. I'm not a bodyguard." Kayla's lips curved slightly, not quite a smile. "And yet you fooled an entire squad of assassins with a broken drone and a surge of power. Do not underestimate yourself, human." Daniel shook his head, trying to steady his racing thoughts. "All right. Let's say I believe you. Let's say I help you. What's the end game here? What happens if you actually survive?" Kayla's gaze darkened. "I carry something more valuable than my life. A code. Daniel frowned. A code? She lowered her voice. It is the core access key to the Veer defense network. Whoever controls it can command fleets, disable shields, even bend colonies to their will. In my hands, it is safety. In my uncle's, it is enslavement. Daniel's blood ran cold. Now he understood why she couldn't go to the governor or the military. Whoever held her would also hold that key. And humans, desperate to secure their place among the stars, might just be tempted to take it. You realize what you're saying? Daniel whispered. That thing could start a war. A real war, one humanity might not survive. Kayla met his gaze firmly. That is why I trust no one. Not your governor. Not your commanders. Only you. Daniel swallowed hard. He didn't want this responsibility. He wasn't a spy or a hero. He was just a tired engineer who wanted a quiet life. But looking at Kayla's steady eyes, he knew he couldn't just throw her out. Great, he muttered. Just great. Hours passed in tense silence. Kayla rested with her eyes closed, but Daniel couldn't sleep. Every sound in the corridor made him flinch. He kept replaying her words in his head. A code that could control fleets. Assassins hunting her. A coup that could engulf the stars. When dawn finally broke over Arian 7, the colony stirred with life. Daniel washed his face, trying to look normal before heading to his daily duties. Kayla rose too, stretching with graceful movements that made her seem almost otherworldly. Where are you going? She asked. Work, Daniel said. Because unlike some royal fugitives, I can't just sit around all day. People notice when I'm gone. Kayla frowned but didn't stop him. Very well. But be careful. If you draw attention, you will doom us both. Daniel grabbed his toolkit and forced a smile. Don't worry. Humans are good at blending in. We've been hiding our problems since the dawn of time. The colony seemed normal, but Daniel felt every glance linger too long, every guard step echo too loudly. He worked on the southern defense grid, repairing a faulty plasma relay. But his mind was elsewhere. When he returned to his quarters, Kayla was waiting, her expression sharp. They searched the west block, she said. Came within 2 halls of here. They are closing in, Daniel cursed under his breath. Then we need a better plan than just sitting here. Kayla nodded. Agreed, tonight we must move. Move where? Daniel asked. Kayla hesitated, then spoke firmly. To the wildlands outside the colony. There is a cave system where their scanners cannot reach. From there we can plan. Daniel's stomach twisted. Leaving the colony meant losing safety, supplies, everything. But staying meant certain death. He sighed. Of course. Out into the desert with a fugitive princess. Just another normal day, Kayla tilted her head. Your sarcasm is a shield. Daniel smirked faintly. Yeah, you'll get used to it. That night, as the colony dimmed and patrols began their rounds, Daniel packed supplies, water, rations, spare power cells. Kayla stood ready, her robe gone, armored suit fitting her like a second skin. When the corridor was clear, they slipped out quietly, moving like shadows. Daniel's heart pounded with every step. Halfway to the outer gate, voices shouted behind them. They've seen us, Daniel hissed. Kayla's hand glowed with strange energy, ready to fight, but Daniel grabbed her arm. No fighting. Not yet, this way. He ducked into a maintenance tunnel, dragging her along. Pipes and wires lined the walls as they crawled through the narrow passage. Kayla followed silently, though her eyes flashed with irritation at the cramped human infrastructure. They emerged near the south wall, close to the rocky plains. The gate guards were distracted by the false alarm Daniel had triggered earlier. Run, Daniel whispered. They dashed into the night, the colony lights fading behind them as the endless desert stretched ahead. The stars above glittered cold and distant. Kayla kept pace easily, her movements smooth and precise. Daniel, panting, glanced at her. So, Princess, you sure this cave of yours is real? Kayla gave him a sidelong look. Do you doubt me? Daniel grinned despite his exhaustion. Constantly. Hours later, as dawn touched the horizon, they reached a jagged ridge of stone. Kayla led him to a hidden crack in the rock, just wide enough to squeeze through. Inside, the cave opened into a wide chamber, cool and dark. This will do, Kayla said, her voice calm. Daniel collapsed against the wall, gulping water. Great, home sweet cave. Kayla studied him for a long moment, then spoke softly. You complained, but you stayed. You ran with me when you could have turned me in. Why? Daniel looked at her, sweat still dripping down his face. He thought for a moment, then shrugged. Because that's what humans do. We don't turn our backs on someone who needs help. Even when it's stupid. Kayla's expression softened almost imperceptibly. Perhaps that is why the galaxy fears you. Daniel chuckled weakly. They just don't like that we never know when to quit. The cave fell into silence. But in that silence, a fragile trust had begun to grow. And outside, somewhere in the desert, the assassins were still hunting. The cave was cold and quiet. Drops of water echoed in the darkness, and faint winds whistled through cracks in the stone. For Daniel, it was better than being dead, but only slightly. He sat near the wall, chewing on a ration bar that tasted like chalk, while Kayla sat across from him, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. They had been hiding for 2 days now. 2 days of silence, whispers, and fear of every sound outside. Daniel hated it. He was used to fixing things, moving around, solving problems with his hands. Sitting still made him restless. "Do you ever get tired of staring at me?" Daniel muttered, finally breaking the silence. Kayla didn't blink. "I am studying you," Daniel frowned. "Studying me? What am I, some science experiment?" "You are human," Kayla said calmly. "Your kind fascinates me. You speak lightly even when death is near. You joke even when you should be afraid." Daniel smirked, though there was no humor in it. "That's called coping. We humans do it a lot. If we didn't, we'd go insane." Kayla tilted her head. "Coping? Interesting." Daniel shook his head. "You say that like you're reading from a book. Haven't you ever just laughed or joked, or done something stupid just because it felt right?" Kayla looked away, her face unreadable. "The Ver do not waste time on such things. Discipline is strength. Order keeps us alive." Daniel leaned back, stretching his legs. "Yeah, well, order might keep you alive, but chaos? Chaos is what makes life worth living." Kayla's gaze returned to him, sharp and curious. "Chaos, and yet it also destroys." "Sure," Daniel admitted. "But sometimes destruction clears the way for something better." For the first time, Kayla's lips curved, not into a smile exactly, but into something close. "You speak like a rebel," Daniel chuckled. "Maybe I am. Or maybe I'm just tired of being told what to do." The days passed slowly. They rationed their food, gathered water from the cave walls, and listened carefully for signs of pursuit. Daniel tried to keep busy, carving tools from scrap metal he had smuggled out of the colony. Kayla watched with quiet interest as he fashioned a crude but effective lantern from a power cell. "You humans create from nothing," she said softly one evening, as the small light flickered to life. "You bend the world to your will with broken pieces." Daniel shrugged. "Yeah, well, it's in our nature. We see a problem, we fix it. Even if the fix is ugly." Kayla studied the lantern with almost childlike curiosity. "In my world, such a thing would not be allowed." "Imperfection is weakness," Daniel laughed. "Then your world must be boring. Ugly fixes keep us alive." Kayla didn't reply, but her eyes lingered on him longer than before. On the third night, Daniel woke to the sound of footsteps. He froze. The cave was dark, Kayla asleep on the far side. The footsteps were faint but growing louder, echoing through the stone tunnels. "Kayla," Daniel whispered sharply. Her eyes opened instantly, glowing in the dark. She rose silently, every movement smooth, controlled. The footsteps stopped. A low, guttural voice echoed through the chamber. "Princess, we know you are here." Daniel's blood ran cold. Kayla's expression hardened, her hand glowing faintly with energy. She moved to stand in front of him. "Stay behind me," she whispered. Daniel shook his head. Not a chance. Before she could argue, a figure stepped into the faint glow of the lantern. It was a Ver soldier, clad in dark armor, eyes burning with pale blue light. Behind him, more shadows shifted. Kayla raised her hand, energy crackling. The soldier laughed. "Run all you want, Kayla. The caves cannot save you. Your uncle will have your head and the human will die beside you." Daniel felt fear grip his chest, but he forced himself to stand tall. He wasn't a fighter, but he wasn't about to let Kayla face them alone. "Got any ideas?" he muttered. Kayla glanced at him, her face calm. "Fight," Daniel groaned. "Figures." The soldiers moved forward. Kayla unleashed a burst of violet energy, the air crackling as it slammed into the first attacker. The soldier flew back, armor sparking. Daniel grabbed his lantern, yanking the power cell free. Sparks flew as he jammed 2 wires together, creating a blinding flash of light. The soldiers stumbled, disoriented, their helmets shielding them poorly from the sudden glare. "Run!" Daniel shouted. Kayla didn't argue this time. They dashed deeper into the caves, the sound of pursuit echoing behind them. They ran until their lungs burned, twisting through narrow passages and climbing jagged rocks. Finally, they stumbled into a wide cavern lit by glowing crystals embedded in the walls. Daniel collapsed against the stone, gasping for air. "Please tell me they're not still behind us." Kayla closed her eyes, listening. After a moment, she nodded. "We lost them. For now." Daniel let out a shaky laugh. "For now?" I'm starting to hate those words. Kayla looked at him, her expression softer than before. "You fought without hesitation, even knowing you could die." Daniel shrugged weakly. "Yeah, well, that's what humans do. We don't let friends fight alone." Kayla blinked, the word seeming to catch her off guard. "Friends?" Daniel met her gaze. "Yeah, that's what we are now. Whether you like it or not." For a moment, silence filled the cavern. Then Kayla nodded slowly. "Friends?" she repeated, almost as if testing the word. Over the next few days, their bond grew stronger. They shared stories by the glow of the crystals. Kayla of her life in the Vare Court, Daniel of his childhood on Earth. She spoke of endless ceremonies, strict rules, and a life where every step was planned. He spoke of fishing with his grandfather, sneaking into restricted zones as a kid, and the messy, unpredictable joy of being human. Kayla listened intently, as if each word revealed a new world to her. Sometimes she even asked him to repeat his stories, her usually sharp voice soft with curiosity. "You humans are strange," she said one night. "You find joy in failure. You laugh at mistakes." Daniel grinned. "Of course. Mistakes are half the fun." Kayla shook her head, though her lips curved faintly. "Perhaps that is why you survive when others would fall." Daniel smirked. "You're starting to sound like a fan." Kayla gave him a long look. "Perhaps I am." But peace never lasted. One evening, as Daniel was tinkering with a makeshift trap made of wires and rocks, Kayla stiffened suddenly. "They are close," she whispered. Daniel tensed. "How do you know?" "My blood. It feels when danger comes." Before Daniel could reply, voices echoed through the tunnels again. The assassins had returned. Kayla's eyes narrowed. "We cannot keep running. They will chase us forever." Daniel stood, gripping the half-built trap. "Then we fight smart. Human style." Kayla tilted her head. "Human style?" Daniel grinned, despite the fear twisting in his stomach. "Improvisation." They set their traps quickly. Daniel rigged power cells to create flash charges, set loose rocks to fall in narrow passages, and carved sharp spikes from crystal shards. Kayla prepared her energy, her hands glowing with violet fire. When the assassins entered the cavern, they were met with chaos. Blinding flashes erupted, rocks crashed down, and Daniel hurled crystal shards like spears. Kayla moved like a storm, her energy blasts precise and devastating. Together they fought side by side, human ingenuity and alien power blending into something unstoppable. When the last soldier fell, silence returned to the cavern. Daniel leaned against the wall, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. Kayla stood nearby, her energy fading, her eyes glowing faintly in the dim light. She looked at him, something new in her gaze. "Respect. You are more than I expected, human," she said softly. Daniel smirked weakly. "Yeah, I get that a lot." Kayla stepped closer, her voice firm. "Alone I would have fallen. With you I survived. Perhaps there is strength in chaos after all." Daniel met her gaze, exhausted but smiling. "Told you." For a moment, in the quiet glow of the crystals, they stood together. Not princess and engineer, not alien and human, but allies, friends, survivors, and maybe, just maybe, something greater than either of them had begun. The cave had become their sanctuary, but the weight of reality never left Daniel. Every glance at Kayla reminded him that danger was never far away. The Vare assassins had retreated, but their presence lingered in the shadows. Daniel paced the cavern, hands clenched. "We can't keep hiding here forever. Sooner or later they'll find us again." Kayla watched him quietly, arms crossed. "Then we must plan." "Strategy is survival." Daniel shook his head. "Strategy alone won't save us. We need something more, something unpredictable, something human." Kayla's violet eyes studied him. "Humans rely on improvisation?" "Exactly," Daniel said. "We look at a problem, we don't just follow the rules. We break the rules when necessary. That's why we survive." Kayla tilted her head, her expression thoughtful. Then perhaps your kind is not weak, as many believe. Perhaps your unpredictability is strength. Daniel smiled faintly. Told you. The following day, Daniel and Kyla ventured outside the cave to gather supplies. The desert stretched endlessly, jagged rocks and dusty plains under a scorching sun. The air shimmered with heat, and the horizon seemed to stretch farther than any eye could see. Kayla moved with precision, scanning the terrain, every step measured. Daniel followed, carrying a pack with rations and tools. As they walked, Kayla spoke. In my world, humans are seen as reckless, chaotic. Yet I have seen now that you are persistent, resilient, and brave. You are the opposite of weak. Daniel chuckled. I'll take that as a compliment. Brave is fine, as long as we survive the day first. Kayla smiled faintly. Perhaps survival is the only measure that matters. They reached an abandoned supply outpost long forgotten by the colony. Dust-covered crates, broken tools littered the floor, and sunlight streamed through holes in the roof. Daniel quickly began scavenging, checking supplies. We need water, energy packs, anything that lasts. If they chase us again, we won't last without resources. Kayla watched him work, clearly impressed with his efficiency. You are more capable than I imagined. Humans can survive anywhere with anything. Daniel smirked. We have to. Our species has a habit of not giving up. It's built into us. As evening approached, the sky turned a deep orange and they returned to the cave with their supplies. Kyla had been quiet during the walk, seemingly lost in thought. When they reached the cavern, Daniel finally asked, What's on your mind? Kayla's gaze was distant. The weight of two worlds rests on me. One is my duty to the Vare, my people. The other is trust I have placed in humans. That trust is dangerous, perhaps foolish. But I see now that humans are different, stronger in ways my people cannot understand. Daniel nodded. That's the thing about humans. We survive not because we're perfect, but because we never quit. Even when we shouldn't win, we do. Kayla studied him, a new respect in her expression. You are unlike any human I have encountered. Perhaps I misjudged your kind before? Daniel shrugged. Yeah, well, most people do. But surviving isn't about being perfect. It's about being stubborn enough to see another sunrise. Kayla gave him a small, almost imperceptible smile. Perhaps that is why I remain alive. Because I trusted you. Daniel grinned. Glad to know my stubbornness has purpose. Night fell again and the cave darkened. They sat near the glowing crystals, sharing their thoughts in low voices. Kayla spoke first. My uncle's coup spreads faster than I imagined. The colony is in danger and so are you. My presence here puts you at risk. Daniel frowned. I know, but I won't abandon you. Humans don't leave allies behind. Kayla's violet eyes softened. Your loyalty is remarkable. It is unlike anything I have seen among my people. Perhaps it is why I survived when others would have fallen. Daniel chuckled faintly. Guess humans have something to prove. Kyla studied him quietly as if trying to understand him fully. You speak of loyalty, bravery, and survival. You remind me that life is more than rules and ceremony. Perhaps the Vare have much to learn from humans. Daniel shook his head. Well, we've got plenty of flaws too, but we make up for them in ways the galaxy doesn't expect. Kayla's expression grew thoughtful. Then perhaps humans are more dangerous than I imagined. Not because of technology or weapons, but because of spirit, determination, courage. Daniel smiled faintly. That's the idea. You don't give up, you improvise, you fight when no one expects it. That's humanity. Their conversation was interrupted by a sudden noise, a distant rumble, faint but unmistakable. Kyla's eyes widened. They are coming, she whispered. Daniel jumped to his feet. Already? But we just got here. Kayla's expression hardened. They have resources beyond your imagination. They will not stop until they have me, or until the code is destroyed. Daniel clenched his fists. Then we make sure they don't get either. We fight smart, we survive, and if they come for us, we give them a welcome they won't forget. Kayla nodded. Agreed, but we must be careful. One mistake and we are both dead. Daniel took a deep breath. Then we improvise. That's the human way. The night passed slowly, every sound amplified in the silent desert. They set traps around the cave entrance, sharp stones, tripwires, and crude alarms made from scavenged parts. Daniel worked efficiently, Kayla assisting when needed. When the first silhouettes appeared in the moonlight, they were ready. Daniel activated a small power cell, sending a blinding flash into the eyes of the approaching soldiers. Kayla struck with precision, energy bursts sending them sprawling. The traps triggered perfectly, rocks tumbling down the slopes making the terrain treacherous for anyone who followed. The battle was chaotic but brief. Daniel and Kayla fought as one, human ingenuity and Vare energy blending seamlessly. By dawn, the soldiers were either captured or fleeing, nursing wounds and cursing their luck. Daniel wiped sweat from his brow, breathing heavily. Not bad for 2 days on the run. Kayla nodded, her expression softening. You are remarkable, human. Without your improvisation, I would not have survived. Daniel grinned faintly. Guess humans have a place in the galaxy after all. Kayla studied him for a long moment. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps humanity has a strength even my people cannot measure. A strength not of power, but of heart. Courage, determination. Daniel smirked. Told you. Never underestimate stubborn humans. Kayla smiled faintly. Perhaps it is time the galaxy recognizes this truth, that humans are more than they seem. That they are dangerous, because they do not quit. Daniel laughed quietly. Welcome to the human way, princess. You're part of it now. They stood together at the cave entrance, the rising sun painting the desert gold. For a brief moment, the weight of two worlds seemed lighter. They had survived the night, fought back the danger, and learned to trust each other. But Daniel knew it was only temporary. The Vare assassins would return. The galaxy would continue to test them. And somewhere, the code Kayla carried would draw new dangers, new challenges. Still, he felt a spark of hope. Humans had a way of surviving. They had a way of thriving when the odds were impossible. And now Kayla understood why. The human spirit, he thought, was not something to underestimate. It was chaos, courage, and stubbornness all wrapped into one, and together they would prove it to the galaxy. The desert stretched endlessly, a vast sea of jagged rocks and shifting sands. Daniel and Kayla moved cautiously, staying low as the first light of dawn painted the horizon. The cave had been their sanctuary, but it could not hide them forever. They'll come again, Kayla said quietly, scanning the terrain with sharp violet eyes. And this time they will be stronger, faster, and more organized. Daniel adjusted the pack on his shoulder. Then we better make sure they regret it. Humans don't back down easily. Kayla's lips curved faintly. I am beginning to see that. Your kind fights even when the odds are against you. Daniel smirked. It's called survival instinct. They pressed on through the rocky plains, moving toward a narrow canyon Kayla had scouted earlier. Its walls were high and jagged, perfect for setting traps and hiding from aerial surveillance. As they entered the canyon, Kayla paused, placing a hand on the rock wall. We can use this to our advantage. The canyon's twists and shadows will make it difficult for them to track us. Daniel nodded. Good. And we'll set a few surprises of our own. Nothing fancy, just enough to slow them down. They spent the next few hours preparing. Daniel scavenged rocks and debris, fashioning crude tripwires and small explosive traps from energy cells. Kayla focused her energy, setting barriers of violet light to block obvious paths and create choke points. You humans are ingenious, Kayla said as she watched him work. You turn nothing into tools, chaos into advantage. Daniel shrugged. We have to. The galaxy doesn't give second chances. Kayla nodded. Then we will not fail. Together, human and Vare, we can overcome them. Daniel allowed himself a faint smile. Guess it's a good thing you chose me. Kayla's expression softened. And I am grateful. Your presence has given me hope. Night fell, bringing with it a cold wind that swept through the canyon. Shadows danced across the rocky walls as Daniel and Kayla crouched, waiting. I can hear them, Kayla whispered. Daniel tightened his grip on a makeshift blaster he had assembled from spare parts. Good. Let them come. They'll find the canyon less forgiving than they think. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then, distant shouts echoed through the canyon, followed by the rhythmic clanging of armored boots. The Vare assassins were coming. Kayla's eyes glowed faintly. Stay close, watch my back. Daniel nodded. Always. The first wave of assassins entered the canyon, moving cautiously. Daniel triggered the first trap, sending a shower of rocks tumbling down onto the attackers. The noise echoed, disorienting them. Kayla struck next, her hands glowing as violet energy arcs shot out, knocking several soldiers off balance. Daniel activated another trap, a small flash from a power cell that temporarily blinded the enemies. The canyon erupted into chaos. Daniel and Kayla fought side by side, a combination of human ingenuity and Veer energy proving devastatingly effective. "Human style!" Daniel shouted, dodging an enemy and sending a sharp rock tumbling toward another. Kayla's voice rang out, sharp and commanding. "Keep moving. Use the terrain." Hours passed in a blur of motion. The assassins, though numerous and well-trained, struggled against the unpredictability of the canyon and the teamwork of Daniel and Kayla. At one point, Daniel found himself cornered by two soldiers. He ducked, rolled, and used a small energy cell to create a blinding flash. When the light faded, the soldiers were disoriented, giving him time to strike with a rock tipped with metal. Kayla intervened just in time, sending a wave of violet energy that knocked back the remaining enemies. Daniel staggered, exhausted, but alive. "You okay?" Kayla asked, her voice tinged with concern. "Never better," Daniel panted, though his chest heaved and sweat poured down his face. "This is what humans do." Kayla studied him, eyes glowing faintly. "You are remarkable, human. You fight not just with skill, but with heart." Daniel grinned faintly. "Heart and stubbornness. Never underestimate humans." By dawn, the canyon was silent except for the groans of defeated soldiers retreating into the distance. Daniel and Kayla stood together, surveying the aftermath. "You did it," Kayla said softly. "We survived." Daniel wiped his brow. "We did. Together." Kayla's expression was thoughtful. "Your people, they are different from anything I have known, not because of strength alone, but because of will, determination, courage." Daniel chuckled. "Yeah, well, we've got a lot to prove, and we don't give up." Kayla's violet eyes softened. "I understand now. Humans are dangerous not just because of power, but because they do not quit, even when the odds are impossible." Daniel nodded. "That's the human way. We survive, we fight, we improvise, and we win when no one expects it." Kayla smiled faintly. "Perhaps it is time the galaxy learned this lesson. Humanity has its place, and it will not be ignored." The day passed slowly as they rested, recovering from the night's battle. Daniel patched up minor injuries while Kayla focused her energy, recovering her strength. "You fought well," Kayla said quietly. "I would not have survived without you." Daniel waved his hand. "We're a team. You handle the energy stuff, I handle the chaos. Together we're unstoppable." Kayla studied him, a newfound respect in her eyes. "Perhaps humans are not to be underestimated. Perhaps your species has a future that even the Veer cannot ignore." Daniel smirked. "Told you, never underestimate stubborn humans." Evening fell, painting the canyon in shades of gold and red. Daniel and Kayla sat near the edge, looking out at the desert stretching endlessly before them. Kayla's voice was soft. "I have learned much from you, human, not only about survival but about trust, courage, and resilience. Perhaps I misjudged humanity before." Daniel nodded. "Humans have a lot of flaws, but we make up for them in ways no one expects. We fight when others surrender, and we survive when others fall." Kayla's eyes glowed faintly in the fading light. "I see that now. Perhaps it is humanity that will shape the future of the galaxy." Daniel smiled. "And now you're part of it too. You've seen what humans can do. You know we never give up." Kayla's lips curved into a small smile. "Perhaps it is time the galaxy recognizes the truth. Humans are not to be underestimated. Not now, not ever." Daniel grinned. "Welcome to the human way. You're part of it now." They sat together in silence, watching the stars appear one by one, each a distant world full of possibilities. The danger was not gone. The galaxy was still vast and uncertain. But for the first time, hope felt tangible. Humans had survived against impossible odds before. And now, with Kayla by his side, Daniel knew they could face anything the galaxy threw at them. Chaos, courage, determination, and heart. That was humanity. And together, they would prove it. The canyon was quiet, the desert still, and yet the stars above seemed brighter than ever. Somewhere in the galaxy, whispers would spread. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. They had claimed their place. And Daniel looked at Kayla and said, "Move over, humanity has arrived." Kayla's violet eyes glowed softly, a small smile on her face. Perhaps it is time. And for the first time in the galaxy, a human and an alien princess stood together, united, unstoppable, and ready to face the future.